Brad, Captain Ahab had Moby Dick.
Yes.
And he chased him around the ocean with his one peg leg and his spear.
Yes.
Right now, my friend, I have a family of 4 skunks in my backyard, and I am chasing them around like Ahab madly. I need you to talk me out of this. My wife is like, okay, they've moved into underneath our deck in the backyard, and my wife is like, David, just pay for an exterminator. Have them safely moved out to the forest where they can live a happy life upstate.
In an upstate farm.
Yeah, just pay for it. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. The exterminator won't hurt them. I don't want them hurt. I just want them gone. She's like, David. So here's how it got started, Brad. My sweet dachshund in the backyard, all of a sudden he's going nuts last week. And I was like, what's he doing back there? And I hear bark, 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 bark. And then all of a sudden, hi, 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 hi. And it's like, so he's gotten been attacked. And I was like, oh shit, what's that? So I run back and I see a skunk scampering away and my dog shaking his head wildly. And I'm like, oh, crap. And so I stupidly bring him inside right away and into the shower, which then is like the worst thing you could do because now the house smells like skunk.
Yeah.
Anyway, I smell like skunk. My bed smells like skunk. My front entryway smells like skunk. The stairway smells like skunk. It's horrible. But anyway, I've now made it like my mission in life, Brad, that I'm going to safely get rid of these skunks. Yeah. And my wife is like, I love you. You're so smart. Just pay for an exterminator. I'm like, no, I am a grown-ass man. This is my quest. I need to get rid of these skunks. I need to move them along. Brad, I have found out that American skunks do not like castor oil. For some reason, it triggers their scent glands and they don't like it. I mean, listen, of anybody to be offended by scent, you wouldn't think it would be skunks.
Yeah.
But so what apparently you do is you take castor oil, you mix it with dish soap and water, and then you spray it around their nest and they move on to someplace else, right? So then it's one of my neighbor's problems. It's not my problem anymore.
And that was my first thought. Yeah, when they move along, they're not going that. They're not going far. Zip code.
They just need to go one fence over. That's all I need. And so here's the thing. We looked it up, and a skunk can spray 15 to 20 feet in a straight line. 20 to 30 feet if they missed it. Like if they get super nervous and they don't know where the predators are coming from, they do this misting action and it goes up to 30 feet, right?
Not missed, the past tense of miss, but mist like...
Mist with a T,
mist, M-I-S-T,
Yeah, so my son comes up with the brilliant idea. He goes, well, wait a minute. There are water guns that shoot 40 to 50 feet. Let's just buy those off Amazon and we'll water gun their nest from 40 feet away. Yeah. And my wife was listening to this. She's like, oh no, I have 2 male idiots in the house. What's happening? And I'm like, no, this is brilliant. Our son is brilliant. This is a brilliant idea. So I just want everybody to know we haven't done it yet. There's no way that this can end in disaster.
Oh my God.
We have 2 water guns because we think it'll be a fun father-son activity. We're gonna wait till 8:30 p.m. because they always seem to come out of their nest at 8:30 p.m. We've watched them, we've tracked them. They always seem to come out at 8:30. We're gonna wait till they all go off on their hunt for grubs and bugs, and then we're gonna mist the deck area. And then mist all the fence lines because they're really good diggers, so they come in through under the fence, you know?
Yeah.
And Brad, there is no way that this can go wrong.
Oh,
this is going to be
God.
Perfect. Next week, gang, we're going to have an update on how it went with the skunks. This is a no-fail situation, Brad.
Oh, man, I cannot wait for next week.
And on that note, I'm going to say hello, everybody, and welcome to Comic Lab, the show about experts removing skunks and making comics.
And expert skunk removal and making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, the author of the Webcomics Handbook and the creator of Evil Inc.
And I'm his friend Dave Kellett, creator of the phrase, "There's no way this can go wrong," cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of Stripped.
And how much would it have costed for you to bring in a professional?
I mean, it would not have been cheap. I did some quick Googling, and it looks like it's well over $300 to $1,000 to have an exterminator remove a family of 4.
Much. Yeah.
You got to admit, that's not nothing. So for me, the experiment of 2 $9 castor oil bottles, and then owning, which is also fun for summer, 2 water guns. That's to me, it's a no harm, no fail. Like I mean, actually, this could go horribly wrong. This can go horribly wrong.
I can't wait to find out next week how it went horribly wrong. And this week's Hour of Comics Advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Dave, let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend, and with the caveat that sometimes I can be book smart but world stupid. And friends, I know this can potentially go wrong. We'll check in next week on the progress. But Brad, I got a question for you about webcomics business strategy.
Yeah.
This comes in over at patreon.com/comiclab. So they're specifically asking for a webcomics business strategy for longer ongoing stories. What, Brad, is the best of these three models? Number one, all the content is free to read, and one makes their money on print and behind the panels content. Number two, all the content is free with a delay, and you need to subscribe to get it early. Number three, all the content is behind paywalls with free previews. So Brad, they ask, I could probably make up more suggestions, but you have some interesting models, I'm sure, in mind to mention as well. I ask because I'm a little bit afraid of putting big projects on the web for free. So Brad, as your friend, I would actually like to tackle that last part first.
Yeah, let's
tackle that last part first. I'm a little bit afraid of putting big projects on the web for free. Brad, what does this fear come from? How does it represent? And how does one overcome it?
We've heard this so often, going back even before we started the podcast. We would hear this from people standing in front of our booths at comic convention. We would hear it out socially at professional events. And it's a very common fear that someone's going to steal your idea, or someone's going to take this and just copy it whole cloth and put it somewhere. And listen, to a certain extent, that's a valid fear. You do hear about different instances of things happening, and it's like, I want to avoid that, and that's understandable. The thing about it is that with very few exceptions, including, for example, young adult graphic novels, where the only way towards a audience is through a publisher, for the rest of us, there's not a whole lot of choices other than to put your stuff out there so that people can see it for free, build an audience, and then monetize from that point on. You do have certain copyright protections, and there's also something to be said for the fact that there's a whole lot of ideas floating out there, and there's not a whole lot of reason to steal yours unless it's really something amazingly spectacular and you've captured lightning in the bottle. And for most of us, me being number one on the list, that's usually not the case. Usually you have to work a little bit towards getting something, towards being audience building. And as you're working towards that, you're also building reputation and notoriety. So then when somebody does come along and tries to steal your stuff, people are much more ready to say, oh, you can't, that's not Dave Kellett's work. We know Dave Kellett. That's not his, and so it kind of helps bolster your notoriety in just doing this and making it available. But overall, Dave, what we've found is that most of these people who are really terrified of putting their stuff out on the web for free are kind of hurting themselves more than they're hurting anybody else.
Yeah, and this is, I find this to be a very human reaction to, I have something special and I'm terrified of losing it, Yeah. And it is so old that there's literally a biblical story, the parable of the talents, where the guy just straight up buries the gold rather than doing anything with it. It's like, all right, you moron, you've made no progress at all.
Yeah.
And I'm not judging you on this, because when I started out online, I had this fear as well, as and I still to this day get pissed when someone reposts my comic by stripping out the credit underneath or the name or the copyright, right? It still happens. I still know it happens. It's fine. But, it is a little bit like, to put it into a different sphere, it's a little bit like being so afraid of heartbreak that you never go on a date.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, I never want to be hurt. So if I don't do anything, then I can never be hurt, right, Brad? If I don't put this story on the web, no one can ever steal from me. But then no one ever gets to read the story, and no one ever gets, and you never get to build a career, and all the other wonderful things never get to happen too. So there's a mental balancing act, and I understand, because I have my own fair share of anxiety, as Brad knows sometimes from the 1 a.m. phone calls. I have my own fair share of anxiety. Brad never takes the calls, by the way. He has do not disturb soundly on. The family's phone call can break through do not disturb. I don't get to break through, so I go straight to voicemail. Hey, Brad, it's Dave. It's 1 a.m. Listen, I got some fears. But I and this is no joke. I actually do have a fair amount of anxieties that sometimes are crippling, and it's. I just don't want you in friendship. I don't want this to be a crippling fear that stops you from sharing your beautiful story with the world because you think someone's going to steal it.
Right.
Are there bad actors in the world? Yes. Does copyright exist from the moment of creation and also from the moment of declaration when you put it on the image itself? It does. So you have fallbacks that you can use. And also, are there ways of using the Wayback Machine to track when something was published? Yes, there are. There's also myriad ways of copyrighting an entire project. We would never advise individual pages, but an entire project. Right. And that can also be the third step of copyright protection. What I'm getting at, though, is that I'm afraid of that last line, that your fear is keeping you from putting something online. It is a not unjustified fear, but I don't want it to be a completely halting fear. Brad, any other summarizing thoughts on that?
No, I mean, listen, there's also the pragmatic. This is the world we live in now. In other words, you only have this option. And you can't. It's not like you're going to take your project to a publisher and they're going to put it out. The first thing they're going to ask you, for the most part, is, "Oh, you've got this new project? Fantastic. We'd like to take a look at it. How many people are backing you? How many followers do you have on social media?
Yeah.
What's your Instagram? What's your Twitter? What's your Blue Sky? Whatever your strongest one. What's your newsletter subscription at?" The world where you take something to a publisher and they say, "Oh, this is great. We'll make a book and you'll get paid as that book goes out." That world just doesn't exist anymore.
I mean, it does, but I want to counter that a little bit. It does, but it's not. Yes, the world where social media people get a book deal based on the fact that they have 1 million followers absolutely exists. Right. Absolutely. Yes.
And for the rest of us, too, the first thing the publisher is going to ask is what your social media following is. There's not a whole lot of publishers that's going to take somebody with no social media, with no reputation, no background, and publish their book, even if it's a good book. Right. That's going to be very, very increasingly rare in our publishing landscape today, right?
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
No, I think that's totally fair. And so I think Brad summarized that perfectly. So now let's jump into which of the three, and by the way, there's variations on these three, but I think we can broadly agree these are three good, interesting starts. Number one is all content to free, and then you make money on the print books. Number two, content is free, but with a delay, and you get it based on Patreon subscription or Substack subscriptions. Number three, it's all behind paywalls. You get little snippets or previews or splash pages that come out for free, but everything else is behind paywalls. Which one of those, Brad, is undeniably the best? Which one is the only way you can go and it's the best? Which one of those three?
So this is something that has been almost unchangeable since the very early days of webcomics, in my opinion. This is something that we've talked about. It's always been an underlying theme of the show, although I until this question came in, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, we haven't said this out loud for a long time. We've always kind of assumed that you understood it or there was an implication there. Okay. But other than that, I don't know that we've said it out loud. The best way for you to build a business around comics is closest to that first option. All the content free to read, and you're making your money on what we call the back end. In other words, that's going to be through a Patreon, kickstarting a book, stuff that happens after you've established an audience. And the only way or the best way to establish an audience is through making that comic free to read. And if your first thought is, oh, they'll never buy a book because they've already read it online, then you're making a mistake that has also been unchangeable since the very early days of webcomics. The fact of the matter is, not only will they buy that book, but those people who have read it online are going to be first in line to buy that book because they become fans of what you're doing and they want that physical archive. They want to be a participant in what you're doing. Those two things have really been present since the early 2000s, in the very early days of web publishing, and have been very consistent.
Yep.
So what we suggest on this show is putting your work out into the world, doing everything that you can to build an audience and retain readership. And we talk about those issues all the time. If you go to patreon.com/Comic Lab and take a look in the shops section, I think we have a whole collection of audience building where we just took the episodes where we really focused in on audience building, and we've got those all grouped for you there. But it goes down to all of those things. I think a topic that we just covered an episode or two back, where we said you got to remember that every day somebody's reading your comic for the first time, and unless you're giving those people an entry point, especially for this person doing a longer ongoing series, unless that update has an entry point that even if I'm coming in on page 12, I can understand what's going on. And it's your job creatively when you're posting it, how to address that. And then that last panel has to have something significant to make that a significant reading experience. Those things are all aimed at retaining readers. The more you retain readers, the more you build an audience. And then you're going to build an audience not only on one or two social media or more if you choose to do more, but you're going to be using your newsletter to do that. And you're going to be using, hopefully at some point, a website to help that. And that is going to be stage one of your pursuit in building a webcomics or building a webcomics business, right, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. And so Brad has said it perfectly in that we often assume that we have made this clear, but because we've been doing this podcast for 9 years, sometimes years can go by without us saying this explicitly. So I will say this again in a way that we have said before, but no matter which way you think of your business, it is a form of crowdfunding, whether you're selling books, whether you're kickstarting a book, whether you've got a Patreon, whether you've got a Substack, whether you're doing something at a comics convention. It is all, in a sense, crowdfunding. And to do that, first, you have to get a crowd before you can do the funding. And the way that you do that is not by having any limitations in the way for someone becoming a new reader. You want to make it as easy as pie for someone to jump in and go big on your archives when they find you and binge and become a fan. You want to basically remove every barrier you can to fandom, right? You want to remove all the barriers so that they can find you, they can jump in, and they can binge when they do spark with it. And in so doing, they will become a Patreon or a Substack backer or a Kickstarter backer, or they will come out to your book signing or come out to your comic convention. All those things are true, but in order for that to happen, they have to fall in love with the work first.
Right.
So, especially with a long form story, let's talk about this. What would happen if you paywalled this in any way, shape, or form with a long form story? Let's say somehow Brad does a teaser page or a splash page or a full page of long form Evil Link. And I'm like, wow, this art is great. This writing is great. I love this concept. I love Brad's. By the way, Brad's face is lighting up as I'm saying this.
Oh, I love all this talk.
I love the way they do character design. I love the way they write. I love the humor at the end. I love the satisfying ending at the page. I'm intrigued. I'm in. Okay, so now I go to the website. And let's say Brad has most of it paywalled. The last 10 pages are free or something, right? Well, what good is that to me? I immediately go, well, I don't know if I love it enough. I'm not paying for this, right? So now I've lost that person, right? So let's say now I have a person who does love it. And they're like, no, I'm willing to pay for that paywall. Okay, great. They're in. Now let's say I've got 1,000 of those people. Great, I've got 1,000. They're in. But on any given month, there is attrition for those
Yeah.
people, right? Some people are moving. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people have passed away. Some people have health problems. All those things happen on a month-to-month basis with my readership. And so I'm losing 1 to, I don't know, Brad, what do you say, 1 to 5% every month
Easily.
on my readership?
Yeah.
And so I need to have a good replacement rate, one that not only replaces what I've lost, but ideally, because I want my business to be growing, goes 1% higher. So it is somewhere 2 to 6% replacement rate on that, maybe even more because of the math involved. So you get where I'm going with this. If I've limited it behind a paywall, I've made all of this harder for myself. I've made it harder for someone to jump in big. I've made harder to keep someone there, and I've made harder to bring in replacement folks for when one of them drops out. So for a long form story, by the nature of the beast, it kind of has to be free to read and free to allow someone to become a fan quickly and easily. They will support you. A percentage of them will support you on Patreon and Substack and Kickstarter and book signings and conventions once they have fallen in love. And it is not a problem to sell them a book for a long form story that they have fallen in love with. I can tell you, having done Drive for 15 years, that's the meat inside the sandwich. That's the core of how this all works, is that they fall in love with Drive so much that they're like, I want this as a book. I've already read it 5 times in the archives. I now want it as a book. Like, it's not even a question. So, yes, you offer the best model that we have put forward is to give it away for free, build that crowd, and then based on the crowd, then you go for the funding. Now, one common mistake, and we haven't touched on this, is that people assume, well, I've got 1,000 readers. That'll be 1,000 people for my book, right, Brad? That's going to be 1,000 people for your book.
Yeah, that doesn't work that way. In fact, you're going to find in general, this is conventional wisdom, that about 1 to 5% of your audience is going to be active. Most of them are going to be passive in that they're just reading the comic, and that's fine too, because passive audience members might slowly become active members over time. But mainly, you're going to be looking at about a 1 to 5% rate of those passive members becoming active, and then those active members doing things that financially support your comic, which is why Dave just got done saying you need to do everything that you can to send that comic out and give people ample opportunity to fall in love with it. You're going for, again, notoriety. You're going for reader retention. This does not necessarily mean that you need to put your comic out on every single social media platform. In fact, we actually kind of suggest against that. At the beginning of the year, I was talking about 2-2-1, where I said, limit yourself to 2 social media platforms that are really working, 2 newsletters, and 1 website. And I still think that's a very good strategy. You don't need to be publishing on every last social media platform because, as we said, without belaboring it too much, every one of those social media platforms has unwritten rules of that community, what works and what doesn't. And if you think a one-size-fits-all application is going to work, you're fooling yourself. You've got to spend some time learning what works and what doesn't. So, like we said, phase 1 is audience building, reader retention, and audience building. Phase 2 comes much, much later. That's when we're talking about the stuff that Dave was touching on with monetizing. The worst thing you can do in the first year or so is to start a Patreon. For reasons we've gone into 100 times, there's only one thing worse than having 0 Patreon backers, and that's having 1 Patreon backer.
Yes, because then you're drawing just for Steve, know. And gosh, I hope Steve's happy with what we did this week, Brad.
Yeah, and also, by the way, that's where you get burnout. That's where you get disappointment. Trying to turn that monetization wheel too early is to your own detriment. It's where we see a lot of people get frustrated and quit because they tried it too soon. They tried to go for the funding before they built the crowd. But a year or 2 down the line, when you see that you're getting consistent readership, you see that your numbers are going up over time. You can see certain things happening. Then you can start to experiment with a Patreon, right? And then some of those things that you listed there now become part of your Patreon outreach. For example, all content free with a delay. You need to subscribe to get it early. Okay, that is what Dave and I usually suggest your first Patreon tier would be. And by the way, nothing else or very, very little else.
No additional new work for you, right, Brad?
Yes, that's what we call the support tier. And it's like at the $3 level, and it's just people who like what you're doing, want to see you keep doing it. You give them early access as a little something, maybe access to the Discord server if you set that up.
And don't forget the magic of comments in those early access, because your site most likely will have comments turned off unless you want to be harassed by the world. And so this self-selected group will have access to comments. That actually is a value for a lot of long-form storytellers. I'll be honest. My readership loves doing the commentary, and sometimes I allow it. I allow the arguments, not the arguments, but what do you call it? The fandom discussions to blossom, and then I'll chime in with this or that little pearl, and I think the readers love it. And so that is a value, honestly, with those early, slightly delayed subscription posts. Yes.
Yeah, and then. Now we're talking, your third option was paywalls. Once you are ready to do that, then for like the $6 level or a $12 level, now we're talking about exclusive content that you can't see anyplace else but Patreon. $6 level is going to be a fairly high demand item. $12 is a very high demand item. And that's something that you could do for one thing that I suggest all the time, maybe a spin-off title that goes along and dovetails with your main comic or a second comic, but something that you can take those existing readers that are reading your free thing and say, oh, if you'd like to see this other thing that happens like a tangent to the story, right? You don't need it to follow the story, but it's a good supplemental storyline. I'm doing that as an exclusive. It's over here on Patreon, right? Now you can direct traffic from those free readers to the paywalled content very, very easy, because as they're becoming fascinated with your free to read storyline, they're going to be more and more interested in this ancillary subsidiary storyline that you're also building as they're becoming familiar with these characters. I like to set it up so that you don't need to read them both, but reading them both gives you a whole new reading experience. And of course, I would incorporate that into the book in every case that it's relevant to do so. It makes your book that much stronger when you put it out. So yes, all of those things have a place. But again, the money side comes much, much later after you've done the audience building side, right? And it's important to focus on what stage you're at, because you can really kind of screw yourself up, right?
Yeah, you kind of have to remember that being an overnight success takes about 10 years. So you just have to sort of mentally prepare yourself that, especially with a long form storyteller approach, which is what I did with Drive. It does take a hot minute to get that train moving. Like, it's not like a flip a switch and suddenly you have a career. It is a years-long endeavor. So you're doing it for the love in the meantime. But I also want to say, like Brad, I also have stuff that is fully behind paywalls that has either free previews or snippets or this or that, much like Brad does. Different genres and approaches, but same basic business model, right? But one thing both Brad and I don't do is for higher paid tiers on Substack or Patreon. We don't mail anything out. We don't physically make anything. There's no stickers. There's no buttons. There's no additional merch that's being made. What is being made by Brad and myself is all digital. It's all shareable to everyone at that tier at the digital level. It is ultimately shareable with everyone else should we decide down the line that once a certain amount of time has gone by, we could move it over to the free side. You get where I'm going with this, is that we're not trapping ourselves into the financial trap of making or promising to make physical items and mailing those physical items, which
Right.
is also a huge time sink, that is a bad path to walk down. I'll just put it that way. And so we would advise heavily against that. It's got to stay digital, right?
Yeah. And so this is something that's been consistent. This has been a consistent part of our business going all the way back to 2000 and maybe a little bit earlier for Dave. I think you were in this earlier than I was, like the late 90s, right?
As far as I mean online, but I don't know that we had not figured out the business model yet, but yes.
Yeah. But we were kind of putting it together as we went along.
Yeah, we were building the plane as we were flying it. That's definitely the case. Yeah.
And this has been very consistent, right? There's been very few cases where we've been able to look out and see alternate business models that had a really good effectiveness rate, right? This is building your audience by putting your work out and sharing it for free, and then monetizing that audience when it's built up to a large size, to the extent that you can say, okay, given the audience I've got now, if I got 1% of them to become active in some way, I could actually see myself as starting to build money. That's right. That's kind of the mental place that I would put myself in. Because even if it's, let's say it's higher, let's say it's 5%, I'd much rather be happily surprised than expect 10% and get 1% and have my, have myself in a pickle financially.
In a pickle,
right?
Yeah.
So, that's something that has been consistent for over 25 years now, is audience building, reader retention, getting that audience up to a certain spot, and then bringing in crowdfunding tools to make that monetization happen. There's no shortcuts that we know of. And believe me, there's no two people who look harder for a shortcut than Brad and Dave. If you don't believe me, just believe the guy that's sending Dave 2 super soakers because he doesn't want to pay the exterminator. There's a guy just like me that is looking for a shortcut.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I know it could end horribly and probably will, but there's a part of me that just wants the challenge of saving a couple $100 to maybe $1,000, and also having the fun story of saying I got rid of skunks with a super soaker and castor oil. That'll be fun if I can make it work. I don't know.
I think that's
very
it's a shortcut.
Common. It's absolutely a shortcut.
Yeah, and it's also common among people like you and me. Sometimes we do these things. We do them for the stories we can tell.
Sure,
it's like if you know deep down if this works, it'll be a great story. If it doesn't work, it's going to be a better story.
Yes. Either way this goes, I'm going to be eating out on this at cocktail parties for years. They're like, hey, let me tell you about this time I had 4 skunks underneath my back deck. Yeah. And so, but yes, to Brad's point, of course, we're human. Of course, we want shortcuts. Of course, we want shortcuts for you. Yeah. If we could give you a shortcut, honest to God, we would. One of the reasons why we do this podcast is to try to save cartoonists earlier in their stages of their career a year or two of wasted effort, just because out of friendship, we have walked down those paths. And if we can steer you away from them to say, listen, just do X, Y, Z, it will save you a year or two, we gladly will give you that.
Absolutely true.
Hey, gang, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we'll tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
Yeah, because when you do, you'll get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And you'll get access to our exclusive Discord server, a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And ho Nelly, if you want even more comics goodness in your life, check out the new drawing show that we're doing with our pal Kevin McShane over at wrongwayshow.com. That's wrongwayshow.com.
In each episode, we'll show you how to draw your favorite cartoon characters the wrong way.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics.
Speaking of shortcuts, I know whenever I go to San Diego for Comic-Con International, I take a shortcut right to booth 1228 because I know exactly what I'm going to see there.
I didn't know what that transition was going to, but now you're promoting me. That's very nice of you. Yes. Hey, gang. This coming week, I guess, I'll be at San Diego Comic-Con booth 1228. And I hope if you are a Comic Lab listener, you're going to come by booth 1228. Say hi. Let me know how you found the show, how you tolerate Brad's laugh, how you're doing with everything with the show.
Yeah. Let us know if that laugh has put you into a mental health bad place yet.
Honestly, I was listening during a road trip this week, Brad, to the podcast, and you were absolutely delighting me. I had headphones on. The rest of my family was like, "What's making you laugh?" And I was like, "Brad." And they're like, they all just smiled. They knew exactly what I was. Anyway, so yes, I will be at booth 1228, and we also have free Comic Lab pins for listeners.
Yeah.
It's a really cool enamel pin that says "Let's Talk Comics," and we would love it if you come by and get your free pin and say hello. That would mean the world to us. I also, Brad, have another update that I want to share with the show. This is Kickstarter specific, and it's basically best practices that I want to share, but I also want to give a doff of the cap to Kickstarter's innovation because in the last couple of years, they have turned on both late pledges and a new system they call Pledge Manager, which is basically a version like BackerKit, for those of you that know what BackerKit is. And so late pledges are basically like, hey, did you miss Brad's 30-day Kickstarter for his $20 book? Well, you can come in late and pledge for the book. You'll have to pay $22 because you're late, but you can still get the book, right? And great. So I've turned that on for the Kickstarter. And then I also have Pledge Manager, which says, hey, now it's time to collect the shipping for your pledge. You got one more chance, though. Do you want to add anything else onto your pledge? Here are the pins. Here are the bookmarks. Here are the posters. Here are the books. Would you like to add anything on? So, Brad, my Kickstarter ended a few months back. The late pledges, people coming in late after the 30 days are over, that has earned over $500 for the Kickstarter, right? Campaign.
Amazing.
Great. That's great.
Yeah.
The Pledge Manager, which is like saying, now we need to collect your shipping, but hey, would you want to add anything on to your pledge? That has brought in over $500 of new pledges. So now between those two innovations, an additional $1,000, Brad, that's not nothing to sneeze at in terms of additional money to a campaign. So I am very happy with Kickstarter's innovations.
So am I. I wish I'd left my late pledges on. I switched over to that button that says you can, here's where you can buy the book. And I haven't gotten anywhere near $500. I wish I would have left the late pledges up. However, this is a great place for us to talk about another concept that we talk about a lot on this show, but we haven't hit the bell on it recently. And this is a perfect example when we talk about the importance of doing market research and avoiding mirror research, especially when it comes to a business decision. Sometimes a little mirror research can be a part of a creative decision. We'll acknowledge that. But we see all the time people making mirror research business decisions. For example, the act of not charging shipping until you're ready to actually ship. As a consumer, I don't like that. I bristle a little bit, but now I got to pay again, right?
Yes.
And I've been a part of a whole lot of Kickstarters. That's part of how I like to be part of the community, right? And so I notice myself, I don't like that, right? However, that's mirror research. And if I were to make a business decision based on that, I would be making a bad business decision because Dave's market research said that having that enabled gave him an extra $500 in his business.
And not from shipping. I want to make that clear. Yeah, not from shipping, just so everybody knows. This is from new products that were people snagged, pins, buttons, all that sort of stuff. So yes, to Brad's point, the mirror marketing, I'm the same way. As a consumer, I always, like Brad, didn't like and didn't want to be a part of shipping being added on later. I always kind of poo-pooed other cartoonists that did that on their Kickstarters. But here is also the real world that made me want to try it. We're also living in a world where a moron can start a war that causes inflationary pricing on all sorts of shipping around the world. We won't say who.
No,
but,
could be anybody.
Could be anybody. Any one of us, literally, Brad. Any one of us could have started that process. But in the 3 months since I kickstarted my book, I could be suffering all sort of inflationary prices for all sorts of different stages of buying my shipping materials, shipping my books to me, trucking my books to me, the books themselves and their production. All of that could have inflationary pricing. What I'm getting at, though, is charging the shipping prices closer to the date that you're actually going to ship them in a world where shipping prices can suddenly escalate. That makes a big difference for a cartoonist in a Kickstarter and how their shipping is not a loss. You never want it to be a profit center, but you never want to take a loss on shipping. That defeats the whole purpose of the Kickstarter. So I also find it valuable in a world where that can happen.
Let me ask you this, since we're getting into it here. So you apply that shipping charge when you're ready to ship the book.
Yes.
Does that mean that you've got to ship through Kickstarter? That money gets applied there? Or does that money get sent to your bank account and then you can use it to buy shipping outside of Kickstarter?
The way I have structured, I'm doing the shipping through a mixture of me shipping the vast majority of them from LA to US based addresses and from the drop shipper to international based, because why ship it twice? So the drop shipper is going to ship those. And so, but that money goes directly to my account. And there is some version of Kickstarter doing shipping. I do not know it. I have not researched it, so I cannot speak on it or advising on it. I don't know yet how any of that works. And I don't know that it's all fully up and running. That might just be in a beta thing. So
fair.
Yeah. So, but what I will say is that what Beth and I try to do, Beth, my full-time assistant, and I try to do is we try to give our absolute best guess as to what the shipping will be for your tier. So the people don't go in blind going like, you didn't tell me it was going to be $100.
Right.
But so that you know, hey, I live in Australia and I'm buying hardcovers. Oh, that will be very expensive shipping based on Dave's guesstimate. So at the time of the Kickstarter, I try to give my absolute 100% best guess as to what the shipping will be. And usually as a Kickstarter backer, I guess you could quietly expect potentially a 5 to 10% increase on that shipping based on if wars start and global oil gets stopped in a certain strait and all sorts of shipping gets expensive. So that's where I leave that.
Well, and that's very enlightening too, because what you just said there in terms of best guess, right? Now, Dave has run a couple of dozen Kickstarters.
Yep.
And the best thing that Dave has been able to come up with, and me too, in terms of estimating shipping costs, is to say, okay, what did it cost to do shipping for my last Kickstarter and the one before that? And then we estimate. Having done a number of consultations for people over the years for Kickstarters, I can tell you this is where a lot of people, especially with their first couple Kickstarters, really get behind the 8 ball because they underestimate what it would have taken. They don't have the money. Now they've got to go out of pocket to ship that stuff.
Right.
Whereas doing it this way, even though, again, my mirror research tells me I don't like it, my market research tells me that it's harder to screw up because you're literally charging them the shipping at that moment. There's no way you could have blown through the money before you got to the shipping, and now you've got to go out of pocket. That money is now being added to your bank account as you're using it to buy the shipping. This is a much safer place for a cartoonist, especially somebody running their first Kickstarter, their first couple of Kickstarters.
Yes.
Much safer than it is to just what we used to tell people in the past, take a guess. Do your best and save your money. In that respect, again, the market research tells you that this is a much smarter place to go.
Yep. And so what Beth and I tend to do is the day of or the day before we put together the best guess chart, we physically weigh every single version of what we're going to be shipping out, including the packaging on our digital scale using pirateship.com for their pricing. And then what we have found is usually it's a best practice to add 1 or 2% price increase on whatever the price would have been for that day, and then spread across sending 500 packages 3 to 6 months from now, that tends to be pretty accurate. Not always, like if a moron starts a war, but it tends to be pretty accurate. So that's my best suggestion for you for your Kickstarter is take the actual weights, the actual sizes, and the actual shipping materials that you use, weigh them the day before you put together the best guess chart, and then add 1 to 2% on for each tier that you're shipping. So Brad, we got time for one more question coming in from patreon.com/comiclab. And it says, hi, Brad and Dave. I very recently started sharing stuff online, as in weeks ago. Sharing work as an artist can feel incredibly vulnerable, and I can't help but feel hurt when I post something and get crickets. Rationally, I know it takes years to build an audience, and there's an ocean of content online, and I'm just a tiny drop in the bucket. And I know what's happening to me is just the normal part of the process. But of course, feelings are notoriously irrational, and I can't help but feel an anchor of rejection weighing me down. Any suggestions to keep up the momentum at the beginning phase of sharing stuff online, Brad? And Brad, I just want to say, what a fantastic continuance of a visual metaphor, a drop in an ocean, the ocean of content, and the anchor weighing you down. I do love me a visual metaphor, so this is great. Yes. So Brad, how do you respond to our friend who is feeling a very human response to sharing things online and getting crickets?
Well, listen, I think we need to give you a little tough love here. And I'm going to preface my comments by saying that that's what's going to happen so you don't get caught off guard. Because the question asker is very honest and says, I just recently started sharing stuff online, as in weeks ago. Okay. And I checked in with this person. I said, hey, I'd like to see your social media. They sent it across. And indeed, when I went to that social media, I saw 7 posts. Okay. So we are talking about a person who has made 7 posts and is frustrated because they don't feel as if they're getting a lot of attention. We need to have a little chat about that because this is a very dangerous headspace for you to get into. And yes, what Dave and I want to do is to give you some tools to navigate that better. And I'm going to start here, but we're going to talk about this for a little while because it's super, super relevant. You are not alone in this feeling. And we're going to try and give you a different way of looking at it. First of all, you've got to do this for the love of comics. You've got to do it because you love doing comics so much that you've got to get this thing out there. And doing it in the format of a comic makes your heart happy. Yes. And makes your soul happy. You love comics because for the first several years, that's all you're really going to get out of it is your own personal enjoyment for doing a comic. You're not going to get a lot of notoriety. And part of it is you say you're a drop in the ocean, but the other side of that is that that's all you've earned so far.
Yeah, you haven't made waves yet. I'm continuing the metaphor. Yes, you haven't made waves yet, right?
Yeah, and I know that's going to sting a little bit, but the honest to goodness truth is that Dave Kellett has been posting things online for free on social media and elsewhere for 26 plus years. Yep. And there are still days that he posts something and it gets crickets.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Same with me. And I guarantee my cricket rate is twice Dave's cricket rate. But we've been posting every day. That's no exaggeration. Every day, several times a day for 26 years. And we get crickets. You haven't earned enough notoriety to expect anything else. And I don't mean that like shame on you. You're expecting too much. No, what I mean is you have to realize that it takes a long time for this to build. And for anyone who's going to tell you otherwise, they're not being realistic with you. This thing that we do takes a long, long time. And everything that we talk about on the show is meant to better your odds, to give you a better effectiveness in when you do post. And we're going to loop around to that in a minute, and to give you your best chances of success. but there's no magic words, magic numbers, or magic hashtags that we can give you that is going to give you something that you haven't earned yet. And 7 posts in, you haven't earned anything yet, right? And again, that is not shame. You're expecting too much. What that is you have to realize this thing is earned over years. And that's why you got to do it for the love. It's the only thing that's going to keep you with your head above water until that notoriety does come later on.
The love sparked you to sit down at your desk the first time and make and then reformat and then post that JPEG or that PNG or whatever it was. It was love that got you there. So what Brad is saying, again, is not shame. It's that you need to reframe your thinking to focus in on that love. The love has got to be the focus, not the potential for feedback, not the potential for crickets or a huge crowd, because that is going to take years. And there's a reason why we say phrases like, this is a marathon, not a sprint. You will take years of sitting down with love in your heart, cartooning, sharing it with the world, and finding you're like, nothing yet today. Yeah. And it is both an exponential growth curve in that there are many, many years where the needle's barely moving. And then you'll find somewhere around year 3, year 5, year 6, there starts to be that exponential curve up. And I'm not guaranteeing, by the way, that there's going to be an exponential curve, but I'm just saying that might be when it starts. Right. And if you continue to work hard and improve your work and continue to keep your head on a swivel, that will happen around then. But it is, like I said earlier in the show, it takes about 10 years to be an overnight success. And so it's funny that comes around in a different context for a different question. But it is not an easy path. But it's also the case that if you're doing it for the love, people respond to the love. And that comes back. I guess what I'm saying, it's kind of like water for chocolate. Remember, Brad, when someone would cry into a recipe and then someone, when they ate the recipe, they would be crying too. Yeah. The work itself shows the love and shows the care. If that's what the focus is for the many, 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 many times that you're going to sit down at your desk and draw. If the love is there, if the enjoyment is there, if you're smiling while you're drawing it, they're smiling while they're reading it. And so that will come through in the work.
My favorite scene from that movie was when the health department came in and shut that whole operation down when they saw people crying into the chocolate. They said, "We're not gonna renew your lease." But one thing I will say, because I can hear this person listening to the show saying, "How am I supposed to love comics by posting comics online that nobody sees? How am I supposed to love that?" Right? Which is a fair question.
It is a fair question.
We're asking this person to post something on 1 or 2 social media platforms, on a website, maybe start a newsletter that's got 0 subscribers so far. How am I supposed to love that? And the answer is that you are not screaming into the void. You are creating an archive for your future fans.
Yeah.
That's the mindset you've got to have. In other words, yes, I'm putting this out there, and today nobody responded. But later on, after I've built my notoriety, after I built my reputation, after I built my audience, this is still going to be there. And it's going to be something that my future fans can take a delight in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to transpose this to other careers, because sometimes that's helpful to see your moment, the moment that you're in, to see that moment in other careers. So we all know the old saying that the things in life that are worth doing are not easy. They take a lot of work, right? So if you want to be a doctor, that's 7 to 10 years of hard work before you get your actual certification. You don't see people 7 days in medical school going, I've done my 7 days, Brad. Why am I not a doctor yet? You don't see people who have been playing guitar for 7 days going, where's my Madison Square Garden? Right. You don't see people shooting 7 shots of basketball going, why am I not in the NBA? Right. Like it takes a while. And I know you're not asking for superstardom at this point. You're just asking for some response, right? Yeah. But what Brad and I are saying is even some response takes a while. It's not a flipping of a switch. Like, I posted my thing. Where's my 2 people? I'm not asking for 2,000. I'm asking for 2 people. What we're saying is sometimes it takes a while just to get to 2. And then 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16. You get where I'm going with that. But it takes a while even to get to those first 2 people finding you online and then coming back. That's an even harder one to get to, right? And that takes a while of consistency, quality work, and a satisfying endeavor at the end of it that it was worth their time to read your work. So none of that happens overnight. None of that happens the first time. It is a slowly building ship that takes a while, years on end, to get to people to board it with you, you know?
Yeah. And in the meantime, go back and listen to some of our episodes on social media. And that's another collection that we offer over on Patreon as well. Listen to some of those episodes where we're talking about best practices on social media and give yourself the best chances of success. In other words, posting an illustration is perfectly fine, but there's not a lot of reasons for me to interact with that post. Hey, there's a drawing of a thing, right? Great, fine. I'd like to know why you posted it. Give me a reason to interact with it. Again, go back to that old story about tell me about your pride and joy. Tell me why you're proud of that. Tell me what about that illustration brings you joy. In other words, give somebody a reason when you're posting to interact, something that going way back to the single digit episodes of Comic Lab, we called a share thought. Go back and talk and give everything that you post. Ask yourself, what reason am I giving this unknown person that's going to see this come across their feed? What reason am I giving that person to interact with this post? Right. That's your share thought. Why would they share it? Why would they share their time with you? Why would they share a comment? Make sure that you've got that covered as well as you're going towards building up your social media following, because that's going to give you a lot better chances of success other than just drawing. Let's say it's the best drawing in the world, the best illustration. If you share that illustration and you don't say anything about it, you're not going to get a great return on that because you haven't given them a reason to interact with you.
Right. And remember our dear friend Kevin McShane over at Kevin's Comics, who gave us the share thought idea that when someone is sharing your comic on social media, especially when you're starting out, what they're really sharing is not, hey, this is Brad's work, I'm excited to share it. Right. What they're really sharing is, hey, this is me, Dave, and what does me, Dave, sharing this say about Dave, so that you can come to know me. So a share thought is really ultimately about the person that's going to be sharing it, right? Yes. And so put yourself in that phrase. So, and also remember that, as Brad said, with so many comics, you want it to be not only a satisfying ending, whether it's humor, whether it's action, whether it's adventure, whether it's a good drawing, wherever that final panel has a satisfying ending. You also want to have a cliffhanger, like, will Dave potentially get sprayed by this skunk next week when he tries to hit him with a super soaker? And that kind of thing makes people come back to a podcast the next week to see if the idiot actually gets himself squirted.
Yeah, and there's only one way to find out, but until then, you've got to understand that you've been listening to Comic Lab, the heretofore, so at this point in time, skunk-free show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my friend Brad Geiger, who will no doubt be judging me next week when I am filled with the what are they called, the oils that skunks squirt. It's a specific oil, I forget what it's called. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He's the editor of webcomics.com, lost that train of thought, and the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com.
I got 7 days to find me a Pepe Le Pew t-shirt, and my friend Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped, and the cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com, and Drive, the Hugo-nominated Drive at drivecomic.com.
And don't forget that I will also be buying tomato sauce on bulk, just in case I do get squirted. Have a little bath ready for myself.
Well, you know what? That's kind of a good plan, is you buy a whole gross of tomato paste and tomato sauce, and then if you get rid of the skunks, you win. If you don't, you win, and you have pasta.
Celebratory pasta. That's right,
Yeah.
Brad. It's a win-win for Dave Kellett either
Yes.
way. I will tell you though that I'm going to be wearing my goggles for woodworking. I'm not getting sprayed in the eyes. That's the one thing I'm not getting sprayed in the eyes.
That.
I will say the Comic Lab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net, and this episode was edited by the ever wonderful, ever whimsical Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love Comic Lab, and we know that you do, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, and you may hear your review featured on a future episode. And don't forget, now go over there right now. Open the app on your phone as I'm talking to you so you can do it along with me. Give us a 5-star review on Spotify. It's the one over there on the right-hand side. Yep, the 5th one, thank you, where we are burning up the podcast charts.
And share your thoughts on today's episode on the Comic Lab Confab line over at 1-609-379-3520. And we may play your message on a future episode.
Make plans to see Comic Lab live at the National Cartoonist Society Conference and Reuben Awards, August 6th through the 8th in Columbus, Ohio. My God, Dave, that's coming right up. Go to nationalcartoonists.com for details.
Wet kneecap. And Comic Lab is made possible by your support on patreon.com/Comic Lab. So we'll go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/Will an idiot get sprayed by a skunk?
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
And now, broadcasting live from the hallowed halls of Oxford University, where the air is thick with old leather and academic rigor, it's time for the histories of sequential art with our esteemed guest professor, Dr. Reginald Wigglesby.
Tickety boo, old boy, and chip chip. Always a delight to receive a call from Colonel Geiger of His Majesty's 3rd Mountain Regiment. So pip pip and what ho, Colonel Geiger. What is today's comics query?
Well, I've got an interesting one. Of course, you're familiar with the comic strip Apartment 3G. I was looking... Yeah.
Quite. Yeah, Apartment 3G, yes, of course.
I was looking back through the archives, and there was a very interesting storyline about 6 years ago where they thought there might be a dead body in Apartment 3H, the next door apartment next to 3G.
Yes.
And I was just curious, whatever happened with that storyline?
Well, we're 6 years on from that storyline, Bradley, so I must tell you that we're about an hour later in the actual comic. They have not yet walked down the hall to see what might have happened. It's a thrilling turn of events over in Apartment 3G, and I must say, it's quite different from Rex Morgan, MD, which is a different story-based soap opera comic. You might know Rex Morgan, MD, Bradley. Is that one you're familiar with?
I'm familiar with Rex. I always wondered what the MD stood for. I assume medical doctor, but I wasn't ever sure.
A common misconception that it was for medical doctor. It was actually moderately drawn was what it was known for. Yeah? Rex Morgan, moderately drawn. That's what it was.